I'm Diana Falzone. Welcome to the Endometriosis Foundation of America, EndoFound's virtual congressional briefing announcing the launch of the UpEndo Coalition. I am thrilled to be here. I'm an EndoFound ambassador and executive producer of Let's Talk Period, the Doctor on EndoFound's digital YouTube channel, EndoTv. I'm also a woman with endometriosis, an illness that has easily changed the course of my life. Today, my guests are compassionate voices committed to supporting the endometriosis community and spreading endometriosis awareness. That includes supporting the bipartisan 2021 Congressional Endometriosis Caucus, co-chaired by Representatives Nikema Williams and Jennifer Gonzalez-Colon. Together with the Endo Caucus and the greater endo community, EndoFound mobilized efforts in 2020 to support the caucus's initial request directing the National Institute for Child and Human Development to allocate at least $26 million toward research in the fiscal year 2021. We're also happy to announce today the creation of the UpEndo Coalition. The coalition will bring together leading advocates, researchers, stakeholders, and health organizations from around the country to increase awareness of endometriosis and help advocate for more research funding and support in Congress. I'm happy to advocate for endometriosis research and awareness and appreciate you all being here today. We need your help to get more members of Congress to join the Congressional Endometriosis Caucus and ensure that the final fiscal year 2022 appropriations bill continues funding endo research at the NIH and through the Department of Defense. I also want to thank the co-chairs of the Congressional Endometriosis Caucus and the caucus members for their work in getting language included, again, in both the House and Senate appropriation bills about endometriosis research. Please go to endofound.org. Take notes, guys. Please go to endofound.org/UpEndo to learn how you can take action and join our coalition. With a debilitating disease like endometriosis affecting millions of people born with a uterus across the United States, we have to work together to bring greater attention to diagnosis, treatment, and research. Today, my esteemed guests will share their stories and why investing in additional endometriosis research and advocacy is essential. We are so happy to have co-founders Padma Lakshmi speak with us, co-founder and excision specialist surgeon, and a man I deeply respect, Dr. Tamer Seckin, keynote speaker Corrine Foxx, endo advocate Lexie Stevenson, Alaia Baldwin is joining us as well, and we have a special message from Olivia Culpo. Our first speaker, Padma Lakshmi, is the reason that I'm here today. When I was first diagnosed with endo, I knew very little about the disease. I heard about it just by name, but I never knew what kind of an impact it can make on someone's body, overall health and life. I heard her speaking on television about having endometriosis and the foundation, EndoFound, that she co-created with Dr. Seckin. Here was this powerful woman bravely expressing her journey in order to help others. I instantly felt less alone because, as anyone knows that has endo, you feel very alone. I didn't know anyone who had the disease. So to have Padma use her platform and her voice to bring awareness to the public about a disease that had very little public attention has made an complete cascade of a positive effect in our world. She co-founded with Dr. Seckin the foundation, giving the 1 in 10 a place to find information and support. I believe that Padma is here with us right now. Please welcome actor, writer, producer, EndoFound co-founder Padma Lakshmi, who also in 2016, Padma went to Capitol Hill for EndoFound's first congressional briefing, where she also met with Senators Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, and more. Padma, the floor is all yours.
She has to unmute herself.
Okay, hi everybody. Thank you so much for letting us speak with you all today. I have waited for so long for our government to listen and respond to the needs of millions upon millions of women who suffer in silence with this and other reproductive disorders every day of their lives. So thank you. I believe I'm sitting here today. I'm so thankful to Abby Finkenhauer and other members of the House who have really worked so hard to get us to this point. I'm also excited about the bipartisan Endo Caucus. I, along with everyone here in this coalition, want to make sure that Congress knows and really understands what we need for American women and all people with uteruses. This ailment is a horrific ailment. I got my period when I was 13, and from the age of 13 to the age of 36, I was down in bed taking a lot of heavy prescription medication that is very addictive and debilitating for 1 week minimum a month. 1 week, 25% of my life for 23 years before I finally got the treatment that I needed. And it wasn't because I didn't have health insurance. It wasn't because I didn't have access to good medical care. It was because there was so little awareness about this incredibly debilitating disease. And as anybody with endometriosis will tell you, the physical chronic pain is only a part of it. Endometriosis is as debilitating to your mental well-being and your emotional well-being. It affects every aspect of a sufferer's life. It affects their family members, their colleagues, their children, their friends, their romantic relationships. I got divorced in part because of my illness. I will tell you that the disease makes you feel like you're crazy, that you're alone. And for many women who want to pursue a career, and if we don't, when we are trying to compete with our male counterparts and have equal footing, this disease holds us back. In fact, it costs our economy $78 billion a year in lost wages, medical care, psychological care, and a whole host of other issues. And so this is a problem that affects all of us, because when a woman is down, everybody in her circle is down. And so I applaud everyone who's listening today for just taking the time to find out about these needs. I applaud Abby Finkenhauer again for getting that figure up from $14 million a year to $26 million a year, which is still a drop in the bucket, but it's something. So over 10 years ago, almost a dozen years ago now, I, at the suggestion of Dr. Tamer, who was my surgeon, started speaking about it publicly because I saw that my niece started complaining of the same symptoms that I was having. And I didn't want her to have to go through what I went through. I don't want my 11-year-old daughter to have to do that either, or any of the women, I apologize, or any of the people who are held back by endometriosis, because there is good treatment. We don't have a cure, but we have good modalities of treatment, including laparoscopic excision surgery and other therapies. But I want to tell you the ways in which Congress can help quickly before my other speakers start. There are 3 major ways that we want to make strides in endometriosis in our country, who is a leader in the world. We are part of a nation that is the richest, most capable country in the world. So we should be able to do this. There's so many issues that we can't do anything about. This endometriosis is actually one we can do lots about. First and foremost, you will hear my colleagues and friends speak about research. Research, research, research. We need more money. We need a 0 on that 26, at least for research. The second is advocacy and awareness. One of the reasons that I fell through the cracks is because of the way that endometriosis is taught in medical schools. It is not given enough attention. Any physician working in the body cavity should have ample endometriosis education as part of their medical training. And the third way that I want to also draw your attention to helping is to tell our insurance companies who make a lot of money on our health that they need to cover this surgery, that they need to believe their patients, because they're going to wind up spending much more money down the line. I had a case just in the last few months of a young woman that I've known since she was a child, who I've mentored, who's on Broadway, who had good health insurance. And I'm happy to name the health insurance company. It was Cigna, who denied her, her cost of surgery, even though she had written them a personal letter. She had had all the exact diagnostic codes presented by her surgeon. She was denied. She appealed the denial and was appealing again, appealing the denial. And still Cigna refused to cover her surgery from one of the leading experts in the field, in the world, who you'll hear from. This girl is 23 years old. She has her whole life ahead of her. She's a dancer on Broadway, and she should have had her health insurance cover this very, very serious illness. And they did not. We had to actually start a GoFundMe page for her so that she could get the medical help she needed, so that she would have an equal chance at a fruitful, healthy, happy, and productive life. And so we need Congress to pay attention to this and other reproductive ailments, because they're connected. And we need our attention to be placed first and foremost on funds for research, and also pressure and funds from insurance companies to require this, require them to help give treatment to those women who need it. It doesn't matter if you lean left or right. This is a bipartisan issue. And we all know that everyone deserves to have the same opportunity to achieve their best in life, so that they can contribute to our culture and our nation. But if you're down with pain a week or more a month, if you've never explored your fertility until it may be too late, if all of that prevents you from pursuing your career, taking care of your family, being a civic-minded person in your community, if all of that goes out the window, then all of our citizens will never, ever be equal. And that's what we're striving for. We're striving for every citizen in America to have equal access to a healthy life. We're the richest and most capable country in the world, and we should be addressing this issue head on, because half our population is female. And it affects a significant amount of women of childbearing age, or anyone with a uterus, so that all our citizens can have a life that is pain-free, that's healthy, and that allows them to flourish. I have been very moved to see the outpouring of stories that have come out from Congress and other places. I'm so glad that there are so many other women speaking about this now. I'm very proud of the work that Dr. Seckin, myself, our board members, and countless volunteers and nurses have been able to achieve in this last decade. But if we don't have our government's help, we will only get so far. This is a win-win situation for any member of Congress to help. Everybody is affected by this disease. I encourage you to make this a part of your thinking when you are making legislation and appropriating funds for research, but also when you are dealing with insurance companies, when you're dealing with medical education and major hospitals. Thank you so much for listening to me. I'm very, very excited to be here. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I know we have a lot of people speaking.
Thank you, Pat. Wow. All of those points, I think, hit home for so many of us. So thank you for mentioning, especially about insurance, because that is a big, big hurdle. And thank you for all you have done for all of us, because we wouldn't be here without you and Dr. Seckin. So thank you. I'm
very proud of you, Diana. You've come such a long way. Look at you. You're so poised and elegant.
As are you. Thank you. Made my day. Now EndoFound co-founder and renowned excision surgeon, and someone who I consider like family now, Dr. Tamer Seckin, who I had the honor of going to Capitol Hill with for a congressional briefing back in 2018 to educate about endometriosis. And we met with Senator Orrin Hatch and Senator Elizabeth Warren's office. He will now share how he first learned about the disease endometriosis and what drives his passion.
Well, first, I remember the first endo patient I ever had. I was in residency program in another country. And after that, I never saw endo patients. And even then that program, I saw only one. And then the same amount of complaints that we face in women when I trained in Buffalo, I remember at that time, it was sexually transmitted disease, STDs were in fashion. So everyone who had pain with their period ending in emergency room had to go like a rape kit. You know, we went over all STD check, chlamydia, herpes, you know, just gonorrhea, that type of thing. And many times the cultures all came negative, but we still treated those women like as if they have STD. And truthfully, I thought that was such an unfair thing. I knew it was not STD, something else, but I was a resident. I didn't know any better. Then my department came out with the research looking at these things, and through the laparoscopy, they saw a lot of adhesions. Again, there were other things I was seeing that they were not seeing. There were endo implants, to be honest with you. So my interest really started during my residency. And since then, you know, the endo really became something that we talk about now. Truthfully, after we started this awareness campaign, right now, I don't think there's a shortage of endo awareness. It's out there. It's the most sought after female health word in Google, as CNN reported last year or 2 years ago. And people know what endometriosis is. And there's so many endometriosis specialists also popped out. Obviously, as doctors, I do feel there's many steps ahead as far as standardizing the surgical techniques and methodology and everything. But before, you know, the bottom line is we progress so much right now. We can really identify the disease at an early age, very early age. And by timing the intervention at an optimum age, not, you know, like after trial of certain things, obviously, but not without getting late, intervention becomes a major stop for the disease progress, and these women do exceptionally well. Unfortunately, when the disease is way ahead and goes forward, the surgical approaches become more radical. I like to also put an emphasis on the value of birth control pills. You know, there are more birth control pills are used more for medical reasons than birth control, actually, from skin, from, you know, painful periods, and for many other things. They're so helpful controlling the ovaries that really basically maintain periods. However, the periods itself, unfortunately, women are not created to have periods. That's not how it was designed. We all know that. So in that sense, birth control is the key to prevention painful periods. So we learned that ovaries, as Padma said, the education medical schools are there. I attest to you right now, as I look at the sample exam questions, I see endo questions out there being asked to residents and being asked to fellowship candidates. It's out there, it's coming, and I think I'm really proud of our foundation. We made the impact, and I know we are recognized by many in the world. Many people copied what we've done in every nation. Some sort of group popped out like ours, pressuring their Senate, their politicians, creating awareness, writing about it. I feel content we're going in the right direction. You could ask questions more to me. I don't know, I jump from one subject to another, but overall, that's my sentiment. I'm not hearing you, Diane, unmute.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Seckin. Our keynote speaker today is Corrine Foxx, an endo warrior, producer, actor, and CEO. And I applaud her for using her platform to help facilitate change for this illness. Corrine, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name's Corrine Foxx, and I'm, like she said, an actor or producer, but I'm also a woman living with endometriosis. And I feel so grateful to be here today and aligned with the Endometriosis Foundation of America. And I want to thank Padma and Dr. Seckin for their advocacy and leadership. I feel really honored to be able to share my story today. However, unfortunately, my story is similar to millions of other women's stories surrounding this disease. I always believed that periods were supposed to hurt. That's what we're taught in our 5th grade health classes anyways. We're told periods are supposed to hurt and that we're supposed to deal with that pain for the rest of our childbearing years. Tough luck. Well, that's kind of what my 11-year-old brain absorbed anyways. Basically, periods hurt, period. And so when I got mine later that year, I assumed that the pain that I was experiencing was normal. The cramps, the fatigue, the swollen feet, the yes, painful bowel movements, the nausea, the headaches. This was all what my teacher told me about in health classes was the big show. This was womanhood at its finest. And I, just like every other woman on planet Earth, would just deal with the pain. That was my duty. And so over the next 11 years, that's what I did. Even though my pain was increasing, I fought through it. I justified the crippling pain as routine PMS. And I figured that every woman dealt with gut punching, bring you to your knees cramps that stopped you from going to work or school. I really thought this was a rite of passage. And it wasn't until I was 23 years old when my roommate found me lying on the bathroom floor in fetal position that somebody finally told me, Corrine, this isn't normal. And it may seem obvious now, but in that moment, I was completely shocked. I had been sold this narrative that this is how periods work. They hurt. And it wasn't until that moment that I ever thought to question that. And from there, I spent 4 months shuffling from doctor's offices to homeopathic practices before I had even heard the word endometriosis. And I did all of this alone. It was really hard for me to describe the intensity of my pain to my doctors, my friends, and even my family. I don't think anyone can really imagine what living with chronic pain feels like until you've experienced it yourself. And I soon realized that I was the only person who was going to fight for my health. I'll never forget the day that I got my diagnosis, not because it was a day that was filled with relief like it should have been, but because I hope no woman ever has to feel the way that I did. I was at a new doctor's office that day, which meant it was a new person to prick and probe me. And however, this time, just as the doctor was about to send me home with no answers as usual, I explained my symptoms one more time, and this time something clicked. I could see him putting the clues together in his head before he said, sounds like endometriosis. And instead of offering me more information about the disease, he quietly stepped out of the room to leave me alone. And that word endometriosis rang vaguely familiar to me, not because it was taught in school or because any other doctor had mentioned it to me. I actually had a small sense of familiarity with the disease because of actor Lena Dunham. And I remembered that she had spoken candidly about her battle with the disease. I also knew that she had a hysterectomy, which is an extremely brave and personal decision that was right for her. But Lena's experience was all that I had ever heard or ever seen of the disease. So in that moment, when the doctor said endometriosis, I really heard infertility. And I was devastated, and I was sobbing in this exam room alone. And this nurse entered to tell me that I could schedule my surgery at the front desk without any more information about what that surgery entailed. I never went back to that office, but instead, now empowered with my diagnosis, I researched and I sat on message boards and I read medical journals and I listened to podcasts. And let me tell you that what I found was devastating. Endometriosis affects 1 in 10 women during their reproductive years. And if you're doing the math, that's over 16 million women in the US alone. 16 million. How could that many women be suffering with this disease and it took me months to receive a diagnosis? How could I see multiple doctors and only have one even utter the word endometriosis? The facts were infuriating. The lack of research on this disease and funding for research and better treatment options is astounding. We've spent billions of dollars on curing male erectile dysfunction, but we can't seem to gather enough interest in a disease that affects millions of women's ability to have a child. So if we could just stop being grossed out by periods for 1 minute, we could realize that we have a condition that's been wildly under-researched and that millions of women probably live with and have never even heard of. But my findings weren't all bad. I was able to find the perfect doctor for me, one of the few doctors that are well-versed in endometriosis in the country. And on October 11, 2018, I successfully had endometriosis tissue removed without risking any of my reproductive organs. But I am going to add this in that the surgery was not covered by insurance and it was $20,000 out of pocket. And I say all of this because I wish I had heard it 15 years ago in my health class. I wish I had someone tell me that there's a difference between normal menstrual pain and debilitating, excruciating pain. I wish I had someone tell me that my symptoms were the classic symptoms of endometriosis early on. I wish I even knew what endometriosis was. Knowledge is power, and when we don't know fundamental facts about our bodies, we become powerless in the fight for our own health. So here's what I wish I learned in my 5th grade health class. Yes, periods hurt, but you should never be in debilitating pain. And if you can't get out of bed and you are missing work or school, you need to see a doctor. And if that doctor tells you that what you are feeling is normal, get a second opinion. Hell, get a third. And until you find a solution that brings you real relief, keep demanding to be seen, because no one is going to fight for your health more than you. And to my fellow endo warriors on this call and listening on this journey, I want to let you guys know that I am here with you. I stand with you. I feel your pain, and I am here to not take normal for an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I love that. Very impassioned. Thank you so much. Now we have a special message from actress, model, and endometriosis advocate, Olivia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia Culpo, and I am so honored to be here today to speak on behalf of EndoFound and the endometriosis community. Thank you to Representatives Nikema Williams and Jennifer Gonzalez Colon for relaunching this caucus, and to former Representative Abby Finkenhauer for founding it in 2020. I have endometriosis, which is something that affected me both mentally and physically. Physically, because of the endometrial lesions that were causing severe pain within my body, and mentally because I was constantly not given validation in my symptoms, and that's proven in the 7 to 10 year delay in diagnosis on average for this disease. I feel very, very lucky to have been able to get my symptoms under control, and I owe a lot of that to the endometriosis community for giving me the answers that I needed, and also the confidence to truly advocate for my health. So that's where education comes in. That's why I'm so happy to be speaking today. As all of us know, there is a 7 to 10 year delay in the diagnosis, and it's because of effort like this that we can hopefully lower that number and eradicate it completely. EndoFound's federal advocacy efforts and work with the House of Endometriosis Caucus saw research funding double to $26 million for fiscal year of 2021, a level they're advocating to maintain for the fiscal year 2022. All of us need to do what we can to educate and create endometriosis awareness. As our community grows, I will continue, along with so many of you, to raise our voices so that we can make the impactful changes needed to support those suffering with this disease. We need employers, doctors, school nurses, and elected officials working together to understand the symptoms and the impact of the disease. Research needs to lead to better diagnosis and treatment options, ending this 7 to 10 year delay to diagnosis. Likewise, we need better treatment options, affording people living with endometriosis better access to care so they can get back to the quality of life they deserve.
It's wonderful that Olivia took her time and spoke with all of us today. Have Lexie join. Lexie Stevenson is an actress and also a fierce advocate for endometriosis. Lexie, do you mind hopping on a little early?
No, I don't at all.
Thank you for being here.
Of course, yeah. I guess I'll start off by sharing my story, because I actually didn't know that I had endometriosis until I woke up from my endometriosis removal surgery. And going back a little ways, I have a pretty similar story to Corrine. I also always thought that periods were just painful. I started my period pretty early when I was in middle school, and it really it affected me a lot, because I started missing school at that point, when the cramps got to be too bad. And as I got older, the pain started getting worse. It started happening when I wasn't on my period. I went to the ER several times, and one of those times there was a male doctor in his 30s, and he asked my parents if I was getting enough attention at home and recommended a psychiatric evaluation. I think that was kind of the moment where that, obviously made my parents pretty upset, and we started actively really trying to figure out what was going on, which led to me going into another endometriosis attack before we had figured out what was going on. And I went into the ER, and there was a younger doctor there, and she saw, it was the first internal ultrasound I'd ever had. They did an internal ultrasound, and they sent me down to the Boston Children's Hospital, where I got more internal ultrasounds. They decided to go in and do a surgery because they had concerns that the growth, again, could be cancerous. When I came out of the surgery, it was much longer than expected. It was 5 to 6 hours later, and my doctor came out and spoke with my mom and told her that at first he thought he had discovered the large cancerous growth attached to the outer side wall of my intestine. Upon removal and pathology testing, it turned out that that my endometriosis had walled off a large lateral portion of my intestine, which shockingly did not kill me. So also the other end of that as well is that I think, some people say that this disease, isn't fatal, but in my case, it was, and it could have been. Luckily, my body fought for me and saved my life. But I think that's kind of my story and why I'm so passionate about this, because it was shocking to me that I had gone 4 years with this disease and nobody knew what it was, and it could have cost me my life. Thank God it didn't. But I am also of mixed race, so I'm also more likely to form keloids, and my body is a tissue making machine, and just all of these things were not taken into consideration when I went and tried to find help. So
thank you, Lexie, for being so open with your journey and what you've endured and gone through with this insidious disease. The importance of endometriosis advocacy is crucial, and every voice matters. Every voice matters. So please join us. Use your voices to help facilitate positive change for the endometriosis community. Please call your local policymakers and ask them to support funding for endometriosis research and join the Congressional Endometriosis Caucus. Together, we can make a difference. We already have, and the sky's the limit. So we're going to do this together. I would like to open this up to our panel and ask those that are fighting alongside of us who have endometriosis and those that have it themselves, what their greatest wish is for the endo community. Corrine?
Well, gosh, I have so many wishes for the endo community. I would say to anyone listening right now who is going through their endometriosis journey, I think we are stronger in numbers, and leaning on our community and leaning on the Endometriosis Foundation of America, one, for your own personal support and gathering the motivation you need to continue to be seen and continue to advocate for your own health. But then also, when we come together as a collective, like we're doing today, we're capable of doing powerful things and hopefully getting all the funding that we need to bring real relief into people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Seckin, as someone who sees this disease every single day and how it impacts people's lives, what do you hope happens for the endo community in the near future?
Well, ideally, obviously, there's not much word to be said about research. You know, we are living in such a crucial time with COVID, all these derivatives of COVID coming every day. We appreciate the value of science. Science is right now so advanced. This is unbelievable. In 6 months, they develop a vaccine they thought they could never develop in 2 years. This is significant. We're living in an incredible success in scientific progress. And in that perspective, seeing endometriosis at this stage is totally pathetic. It's like we're dealing with people who doesn't know how to write or read, and we're trying to tell them what it is. All they have to hear is what we are saying, what all these women have been talking louder and louder and louder. And it's the woman that's really changing. Man like me, hey, I learned about menstruation in the books. I never still knew what menstruation is. Probably I'll never know what menstruation is. But I know better than many men, that's for sure, because I've been listening and I've been sensitive. I believe in them because that was my life. You know, I believe in them, then I validated. I looked inside, I saw it. That changed things. And that's why I decided, and I truly appreciate what Padma has done with me. If she hadn't opened her mouth, we wouldn't be here. I swear to you. She did open her mouth. She was angry. She couldn't believe. If she went through what she went through, she imagined what everybody was going through. As a small establishment who we are, with minimal money we had, I symbolically did everything in 1 year period. We sacrificed $1 million for research. I mean, compared to 26 that they approved last year, it was 8 million when we give 1 million. So we're talking about a small group of foundation from New York giving 1 million for research. And many of those researchers, significant, they all qualified for major funding of this 26 million the next year. So we gave it the money to right area. But aside, so many things could be done. That's what I'm trying to say at this age for research, and progress will be there. The second thing is, most importantly, ideally, I think the way the government, endometriosis is a female reproductive public health issue, and reproductive right is human rights, like Hillary Clinton said. That's her word. And I in my opinion, this holds the fact that governments should take the lead, like they guarantee certain things. I dream a day government guarantees the reproductive health and the everything around with it that comes with being a woman. Certain things are at the core defended. There will be endometriosis clinic at the government funded places, so there will be no BS going around, whether this faculty, that university, this, that. Government enforces, hey, there's endo clinic. I protect these women. I protect these women who have painful period beyond norms and they are debilitated. I protect these. I pay for this woman who needs intervention, who needs birth. There's no discussion. This is the future of America. If you don't take care of your woman, you have no future, period. That's, I don't think I could say anything more than what I tried to say. I hope I put it in the right words.
No,
sometimes Padma thinks that I can't put the words right in place, but
You did
somehow
fine.
I'm lucky.
You did fine.
I'm curious how you had a meeting of the minds with Dr. Seckin, Padma, and created the foundation. How did it come to be?
Honestly, once it took me a while. You know, nobody wants to get up in a room and start talking about their vagina. Okay. Even if you don't have pain, periods are gross. They're pain in your side, literally and figuratively, you know. And so I resisted first, but then, you know, when I got on the other side of that pain, and I have had 5 endometriosis surgeries, 2 before I even got to Dr. Seckin. And even though I had those 2 surgeries, neither of those doctors ever said the words, you have endometriosis to me, and they should have. And these were, very esteemed doctors who I believe were trying to give me the best care they could, but they just didn't know any better. And that really made an impression on me. Once I was on the other side of the pain and I saw what life was like without this huge iron shackle, this metaphorical shackle of pain and inconvenience and nausea and headache and numbness in the leg and back pain and butt pain and my hormones going up and down and being tearful and not being able to explain why my body was turning against me. Once all of that started being alleviated and I healed from the surgery, I was first relieved, but then I was angry. I really was. Because nobody should have to go through what I and millions of women go through, okay? It is not a partisan issue. There's no gray area. We don't have to talk about what side of the aisle you're on. I just didn't want the next generation of young women to go through what I went through. And, I was 37 years old. I was divorced, I was starting my life again, and I was told by a fertility expert after doing some very important tests that I would probably never have children naturally. And even with in vitro, there was only a 10 or 15% chance of ever having children. And every time you do that cycle of saving your eggs and getting hormone injections every day for a certain amount of, time in the month and all of that, it's a really expensive process. It's, I don't know what it is these days, but those days, my gosh, it was at least $12,000 or $15,000. And so the fertility doctors aren't always incentivized to explore why you're having these problems. And it's a racket. And women get tossed around from one specialist to another specialist. And I just wanted somebody to say, hey, this isn't right. And it happened to me and I don't want it to happen to you. And so I started speaking to really small groups. Dr. Seckin had a patient support group and he asked me to come and meet with them. And then he asked me to speak to a couple of young women who were his patients and who were on the fence about the surgery and had seen me, I think, walk out of his office or something and recognized me. And so we started doing it in a very small way. And then we just decided nobody else was doing this. And I gave an interview to Newsweek, which Dr. Linda Griffith at MIT had just happened to read by chance. And she is a researcher who also suffered from multiple surgeries and chronic pain for decades and wound up having a hysterectomy too. I'm not saying anything she hasn't said publicly. And she wanted to start a center at MIT. And so shortly after we started the foundation, Tamer and I went up to Cambridge and helped her launch that. And, one of the other things I'm really proud of with the EFA is, how many young people we've been able to educate. We still have a long way to go so that, as somebody was saying, when they were in 5th grade, they didn't hear about endometriosis. We want to change that. And I know that endometriosis is a medical, biological women's issue, or for people who have uteruses. To me, it's not. To me, it's a family issue because it affects everyone in that family. And the more we talk and start thinking about how we are all connected, and that's become so blatantly clear with the coronavirus. It's not enough just to vaccinate us. We have to vaccinate everybody, otherwise it will affect us, as we have seen with variant after variant. That is true for all of healthcare. I would really like us to think in a more community-based way about this illness, because it does affect us all in so many ways. I don't want anybody to go through what I went through, what my ex-husband and I went through, what my niece is going through, or all of the millions of women. I had to cancel jobs. I had to miss exams. I had to not be there for my loved ones when they needed me. And all of the work that I do now in advocacy, whether it's as a Goodwill Ambassador for the UN or the ACLU, stems from what I learned starting the foundation with Dr. Seckin and my experience organizing and raising awareness and fundraising and doing the seminars. I remember going to the Beacon School with our team to do this presentation to teach this science class. And I don't want to separate the boys and girls. I want both boys and girls, people of all genders and kids of all genders, to have the same information. This young boy came up to me, and he was a sophomore in high school, so 15 or 16, and he said, you know, I'm listening to you talk, and I think my mom has it because she has all of the things that you're talking about, and I really want to help her. She works so hard. And it just almost made me tearful, because I thought that young teenage boy is going to grow up to be a more empathic partner, colleague, father, and friend. And that's what we want. We want everybody to understand that endometriosis affects our culture, our economy, our population, and all of our interpersonal relationships. And it is a disease of the womb, where every single human being comes from. And I cannot think of a more worthy cause for all of Congress to get behind and address in a full and robust way. Think of all of the brain power that you could be unleashing if you treated the women who were held back by pain and debilitation. That's why I started the EFA with Dr. Seckin, because I didn't want anybody not to have the opportunities that all of us should have.
Absolutely. No, I'm grateful for it. Amazing. And you've given so much, you've paid so much forward. How has the endo community touched your life?
You know, it's been really great. I have so many young women who write to me to tell me how it's affected their life, but also that finally hearing me speak, or Dr. Seckin and I do an event, or just reading about it or seeing it on my social media has really made them feel left alone and less alone, excuse me. And I will say that it's done as much, if not more, for me. You know, in those first few years, Dr. Seckin can attest to this, it was just him and I driving around in his car, you know, wherever we were going, hither and yon, to speak to other doctors, to hold a nurses conference that my mother helped with the first year, and my best friend from college helped. Then, you know, his wife also helps us so much. Everybody lent a hand. There's so many people that you don't see on the screen who have worked really hard, given their time, given their money, given their resources, given their connections, given even just their ear. And so anything that I have given to the world about endometriosis, I want to say that I have gotten at least the same back in reassurance and comfort, and just joy in hearing that all these women feel less alone, and that they feel heard, and that there is a place that they can come to for solidarity and information. I would love for our government to now start taking the lead, and it's a very easy thing to do. We've already paved the way for a decade.
Yes, absolutely. And now that you mention that, please go to endofound.org/UpEndo to join our effort and how you can become a part of the coalition, and also how you can go about calling your local policymakers. We have Alaia Baldwin, who she and I have bonded over the past couple of years as women with endo and now small children. I, like Padma, was told I was infertile at just right before my 33rd birthday, and it was devastating. And I ended up going through in vitro fertilization, IVF, and that is a difficult, incredibly expensive thing to endure. And not everyone has that ability to do it. And I'm forever grateful that I was able to have my son. But endo takes a lot from you, but in my life, it's also given me things back. Being here amongst all of you, having those in the endo community that are with us right now watching, I have gained friendship, insight, wisdom, and grown so much because of this disease. Alaia, I consider you a very dear friend now, and I would love it if you could just talk about briefly how endo has impacted your life.
Well.
You can ask me later.
I feel like, you know, we all have a similar background in this disease and how much it has impacted us, as others have said, not only within your time of your period, but throughout the rest of your life. And I think that's what really struck me going into my endo journey, is when it gets really bad, it's just how much it affects you on a daily basis, how much it affects your family, friends, parents, siblings, just everyone. And once it hits that point, there's kind of no turning back. And I just think for me, that it just keeps, it hits this kind of top of the mountain and just keeps going. And it's affecting you from the second you wake up to the second you go to bed, and in your sleep too. So, I mean, my endo journey is very similar to most of yours, except that I actually didn't grow up having period pain for a really long time. So that was pretty different than, I'd say, your average person with endo. And then going into my early 20s is when it just started to flare up out of nowhere. And I had heard of it in the past because it does run in my family, but I can never imagine being like some of you, 11, 12 years old, and being that debilitated every month. And that is what made me angry, like all of you. And that is what inspired me and pushed me, someone who may not be very comfortable in public speaking or doing things like this, because I just can't imagine, especially now having a daughter who's young, watching her grow up and watch her go through that. So that has just been the primary motivation for me. And like everyone has also said, the community that has come with opening up about it, and the conversations and a helping hand, and other young women just getting one message every 5 years is enough for me to, keep being open about it. And to just, that to me alone is worth it. So, and now having a daughter, I mean, it's not even comparable. She can't go through what I did. So that's why I'm here. And just like most of you, and Dr. Seckin, he's the best. That's just period.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing to be joined together, especially for supporting the Congressional Endometriosis Caucus. The UpEndo Coalition's launch is today. As I said before, this is our panel, our formation of the coalition, but you out there, you can join it. You can be a part of this. You can help us, knock on those doors, so to speak, make those calls, send the emails, because we can help each other through this. If you have a friend, a loved one, anyone with endometriosis, this is the time to make positive change for the 1 in 10. So thank you all. I am so privileged and honored to have been able to speak with all of you today. Thank you to our keynote speaker, Corrine Foxx, again, bravely sharing your story and choosing to use your platform to really make a difference. To Alaia, thank you for graciously stepping in. I knew you did.
I want to say one last word.
Yes, Dr. Seckin.
I really think the endo community has to come together. This is not time to be polarized. Enough is enough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And if we're not together, we'll go nowhere. This is not about this person, that person, this doctor, that group, this group. We are not playing game here, okay? We gotta get to be one voice, harmoniously defend what we're saying and express it so we can make an impact and change.
Yeah.
I think people are hearing what I'm saying. They need to respond. We want them on our side. We want to be on their side. No selfishness here. No, let's get together. And I say it because I know it. The community is polarized a little bit. We need to get together, get Congress, man and woman, and the politics of it is only going to be changing if we are together and talking the same points. Thank you.
Yes, a great note, because we do need to unify. We are so much stronger together collectively than we are being divisive. There's been enough of divisiveness in our nation. And as Padma so eloquently said, This is not a partisan issue. This is for everyone to come together, because it isn't just about one individual with the disease, it's a trickle effect. And here we have an opportunity to make sure that we raise much needed funding for research, better treatment options for the fiscal year 2022. The time is now. And again, you don't have to be a movie star, a model, or have a recognizable name to be a part of this. This is something that we can do by joining endofound.org/UpEndo. And I want to also finish thanking our guests today. Lexie, Stevenson, you have done so much as an EndoFound ambassador, and thank you for all you give. And to Olivia Culpo for taking her time for the message. And Dr. Seckin, especially to you for co-founding and for being the brilliant excision surgeon you are, and for the Seckin Center for Endometriosis, and to Padma Lakshmi, who, as far as I'm concerned, she pioneered endometriosis being part of our normal mainstream language that I even knew what it was. And I just am so grateful for all of you today. So thank you for your time, and thank you to those that are watching. And this is just the beginning. We're just getting started with the UpEndo Coalition. We'll see you all again soon.